Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to AMA, Ahmedabad Management Association. It is a pleasure to have with all of you this evening for the screening of the documentary Mrs. Robinson, followed by a panel discussion. This program reflects the values of leadership, courage, and social responsibility that are central also to AMA's own vision. We are honored to partner with the Embassy of Ireland for this special evening which celebrates the remarkable life and legacy of Mrs. Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland. She will be joining us a little later as she has other meetings, but you will see her later. But on behalf of AMA, it's a real privilege to acknowledge and welcome Mrs. Robinson, Ireland's first woman president and a tireless global advocate for human rights, equality, and climate justice, values that resonate deeply across geographies and generations. We are honored to have with us His Excellency Mr. Kevin Kelly, Ambassador of Ireland to India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Ambassador Kelly has had a distinguished diplomatic career spanning humanitarian affairs, conflict resolution, and multilateral engagements. We are also delighted to welcome Mr. Patrick Duffy, Consul General of Ireland in Mumbai. Mr. Duffy is a senior Irish diplomat with extensive experience in bilateral and multilateral diplomacy, including trade, investment, and cultural engagement. I would also like to welcome our panelists who would join us later, Ms. Mitchell, executive producer of the documentary, Ms. Abiola, and senior journalist from Indian Express, Ms. Leena Misra, who is here, and we look forward to their insights following the screening. If you've noticed the invitation, it says marking Saint Bridget's Day. And I looked this up, and interestingly, Saint Bridget's Day bears a beautiful parallel to India's Vasant Panchami. They both celebrate the arrival of spring, honor light, learning, and fresh beginnings. It is a fitting symbolism for today's program as we discussed how to do more with India and Ireland. Ireland, as an integral part of the EU, the European Union, and India have recently entered into a renewed phase of partnership, as we read, the mother of all deals. This EU-India engagement reflects precisely such a fresh beginning, and I discussed earlier with them that AMA would be delighted to play a small bridging role between our countries for mutual learning and benefit. Just right now, today, in a parallel room, we have the Indo-Japan business delegation that's going on, which is a great networking between those two countries, and we look forward to doing much more with Ireland, sir. On a real personal note, my wife, Christina, is present here, and she has Irish ancestry. Her middle name is Sullivan, so you can't get more Irish than that. And my last name is Sarabhai, so you can't get more Guju than that. So this evening feels personal even to me. So once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. I wish you an inspiring and meaningful program ahead. May I now request Mr. Patrick Duffy, Consul General of Ireland in Mumbai, to deliver the opening remarks. Patrick, thank you.
Welcome, Ambassador Kevin Kelly, Ambassador of Ireland to India, AMA Vice President Mohal, Sarabhai, ladies and gentlemen, to a screening of Mrs. Robinson, the acclaimed documentary about the life of Ireland's first female president, Mary Robinson. My name is Patrick Duffy. I was recently appointed as Ireland's new Consul General in Mumbai, with consular jurisdiction for Gujarat also. So I'm really delighted to be here in AMA this evening on my first visit to your state. We are honoured to be in Mary's presence tonight, and she will appear as part of a panel discussion following the screening joined by the documentary's producer, Miss Pat Mitchell, and Gujarat's resident editor of the Indian Express, Miss Leena Misra. We in the Consulate General of Ireland are delighted to sponsor this event as well on the occasion of St. Bridget's Day. St. Bridget's Day, the first day of February, is Ireland's newest public holiday. It is a day dedicated to celebrating our only female patron saint and the accomplishments and creativity of women everywhere. I would like to thank Ms. Rima Nanavate, head of the Self-Employed Women's Association, SEVA, and all the SEVA members who are putting on a superb program for Mary Robinson as part of her climate-focused visit to Gujarat. And we were delighted to be part of that visit yesterday as well. You'll hear more about that wider visit and Mary's connections to Ella Vatt, the founder of SEVA, during the panel discussion. Thank you also to Mr. Unmesh Dixit, Executive Director here at the Ahmedabad Management Association, and all his colleagues who so kindly agreed to host the screening. Thank you also, Vice President, once again. Big thank you from me as well to my team, Tom, Farzine, Farhang, Sean, and to Ambassador Kelly for his support on this project. Finally, a huge thank you to Mary, Pat, and Leena, as well as all the members of Mary's team in Project Dandelion who've supported this important visit to Gujarat. Thank you so much all for attending, and I hope you enjoy the film. Thank you.
Mrs. Mary Robinson is here. Welcome. We will now have His Excellency Kevin Kelly come and introduce the panelists and ask them to be on the stage and start the rest of the program. Thank you, Kevin.
Tamare Badane Namaste Ane Shub Sanj. I'm a bit embarrassed being called Excellency in front of Mary Robinson because we go back a long way and I wasn't very excellent the first time we met. But I'm really happy to be here this evening. So thank you so much to the President of, Vice President and all of the team from AMA. And thank you for this wonderful welcome that we've had to Ahmedabad. I don't know why I'm stumbling with that. It's so great to have this opportunity to celebrate St. Bridget, Ireland's matron saint. And before the film, we talked a little bit about that. But it's a celebration of women everywhere, but it also marks the start of spring, as has been said, and new beginnings, which is very much what we're all about. It's a real privilege to be here with you this evening for, I think, two main reasons. First, to celebrate SEWA and Mary's relationship with this wonderful organization. It reflects the very best of civic spirit and social imagination. And secondly, of course, to introduce a woman whose life and work has been exactly about that, about how communities, countries, and consciences can be mobilized for justice. I'm a little bit emotional having watched that film because I'm old enough to have lived through all of those experiences, watching some of them from a distance, seeing some of them on television, being on helicopters in Uganda with Mary Robinson when I wasn't an excellency, and very much watching her and admiring her from a distance. She needs little introduction because we've all seen that wonderful film, but I think she deserves a full one. She was, as you all know now, Ireland's first woman president, elected at a moment when Ireland itself was just beginning to change. It was beginning to open up, question old certainties, and beginning to find its voice in the world. But what makes her truly exceptional is what she actually did after her presidency, choosing not comfort or quiet prestige, but the much harder path of global advocacy. As UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, but later as one of the world's most respected voices on climate justice, on gender equality, and on human dignity. This wonderful film that we just saw told that story. And as you saw, it wasn't a tale of titles or offices, but it was a story of values, of moral courage, of the belief that leadership means standing with the vulnerable, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unpopular. That's why it felt so appropriate for my colleagues from the Consulate in Mumbai and the Embassy to screen this film here this evening in partnership with the wonderful AMA. And to link it with a community organization such as Sewa, and Rima is in the front of the audience here, which is so rooted in real lives and real challenges. Mary Robinson has always insisted that global issues, human rights, climate change, equality, these are not abstract ideas to be debated in distant capitals, in Geneva or Washington or New York. These are lived experiences, felt most sharply at the community level. Ireland and India share a long history of engagement, and it's a very rich history. It's a history of colonialism, when we ourselves were complicit in empire, but it's also a history of revolution, when with our Indian brothers and sisters, we helped to fight colonial empire. And many important Irish women were part of that story. Some of you will have heard of Annie Besant and Margaret Cousins, who go down in the history books as brave Irish women who fought alongside Indian women for the freedom of this country. But more importantly, even today in 2026, I think that Ireland and India shares something else, a belief that ideas matter, that institutions can evolve, and that individuals armed with conviction can change the direction of history. And ladies and gentlemen, Mary Robinson embodies that belief. This evening, of course, is not just about looking back at an extraordinary life, but I hope we'll get to do that. It's about asking what it asks of us now, here today, in our own communities. How do we lead? Whom do we listen to? And how do we ensure that progress leaves nobody behind? So I just want to say that this evening Mary will be joined on the stage by Pat Mitchell, who I haven't yet met, but I know by reputation, an executive producer of film and co-founder of, she was the executive producer of this film we just saw, but also a co-founder of the Project Dandelion. She was the first ever woman president and CEO of America's PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service, and she's had an illustrious career as a reporter, broadcaster, producer, and an advocate for women. And the discussion today, I'm really delighted, will be moderated by Leena Misra, Gujarat's resident editor of the Indian Express, which is a newspaper that I greatly respect, and I know many of Leena's colleagues back in Delhi. So therefore, I think I'll stop here and say it's my great honor on behalf of the Embassy, but on your behalf, to welcome a global citizen, a fearless advocate, and one of the most influential Irish figures of all time, and somebody that I'm so proud that I've known in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, the former President of Ireland, Mary Robinson.
Hello and welcome. I first met Mary last year with Rima Ben, and I was so impressed and excited that I thought her story should be told. And therefore, I landed up interviewing her. And it was one of the most inspiring conversations I have had. It was published in the Indian Express. And and we've all seen this film, very powerful images, very powerful lines. From the time she says that she grew up with 4 brothers, where she was told there are equal opportunities, but she found something to the contrary outside, to her winning the election, and where she says women rock the system. And then she goes on, not retiring. Which many of us think that, after reaching such a peak, we just, take a holiday. But she hasn't done that. So we'll start the conversation. I would like to start with a question because I've been told that, Mrs. Robinson, you really didn't want to do this film. What made you change your mind?
Thank you, Leena, for the question. And it's good to see you again. Of course, when I was with Sarah, I think I felt inspired. That's probably why I gave a reasonable.
Oh, it's on. Sorry.
I won't begin all that again, but it is good to see you again. And I will take your question because the truth is, I didn't want to make this film because I had sort of become a less public figure in Ireland. People knew me all right and would say nice things, but I was low key and I was doing all my work globally, and that suited me beautifully. Okay. But I had a friend. The film is actually dedicated to her, and that friend was like a sister to me. And you know what sisters do? They tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And she told me, look, Mary, you've had a good long life. You've made mistakes. We put those in too. And actually, the longer version of the film has the mistakes in it. And I actually prefer the longer version, but but this version is good too. And she understood that we need to tell stories of women who have, whatever they've done, it has made a difference. And this film has not only played in theatres and management institutes and things, but it has also, through the support of my dear friend Pat Mitchell, done much more. And I want her to maybe, if you would allow, to say a word about how this film has reached so many women's groups around the world.
Yes,
you wouldn't
please.
believe it.
I was coming to her.
It's a new technology, apparently. I don't know anything about technology. Come on.
I'll come to that in just a moment. But to your first question, which I'm really glad you asked, Mary, because she really did not want to make this film. But her very good friend, Bri, to whom we dedicated the film, called me up and she said, we've really got to convince Mary to do this film because her life story is one that is needed now in the world more than ever. We need to see leaders who are bold and brave and willing to take risks, willing to make mistakes, willing to do the right thing, even when it isn't popular. And I knew that about Mary because I had met her when she was running for the presidency. I was a reporter, like you, covering the troubles in Northern Ireland, and I heard about this senator running for president. So I rushed to Dublin. Mary very graciously allowed me to interview her and to do the first profile on American television. So I'd followed her career as a friend and great admirer. So it was a real thrill to be able to be a part of the production, which was really done by Screen Ireland. We should give Screen Ireland the credit for the film. I came in to be an advisor and to help them, as Mary suggested, make sure the film had the impact, which was the reason I think we talked you into doing the film, Mary, is that it would be a source of inspiration all over the world, and it has been. Because of a streaming platform called Kinema, we were able to offer the film free to any group anywhere in the world who came together and wanted to watch the film together, and then afterwards have a conversation about leadership and about what they learned about leadership from watching Mrs. Robinson. So the film has been seen in 60 countries, in theaters. It's been seen in every Irish embassy, I think, in the world, and we're very grateful for that. And the embassies have gathered community groups like this, as they have done here tonight, and it's had huge impact. And I hope that gives Mary a sense of satisfaction. It certainly reminds us, and I think it affirms what Bride believed, that this was the time for the story, Mary.
Is she the same one who sent the red roses to the person who turned the election in your favor?
I think she had a huge role to play. And then, of course, she was my special advisor for the 7 years I was president. She came with me for my first year in Geneva as High Commissioner because she knew the role would be very difficult. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to make sure that I was supported. And as I say, she was that friend who tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. That's the most valuable friend.
Right. So, Pat, tell me what are the scenes from the making of the film that you found were, the most challenging?
The hardest thing about telling a story like Mary's is what you have time to tell. I mean, because there was so much. We were really lucky that Mary's family took those home videos. Wasn't that wonderful to see those early pictures of Mary and her brothers and her family? And we didn't know that we had that when we got started, when the film Screen Ireland started. So that was a joy to see that early. And you could see what created this courageous woman by those relationships. And then just deciding what we could include and what we had to leave out. That was the hardest part. And Mary was very happy to have, what she describes as mistakes. I don't describe them that way. I think they're tough decisions that every leader faces. And what comes out of this film in every scene is that Mary wasn't afraid to make those decisions and still isn't, as we know. Yes. Always standing strong and up for what's right.
Okay, so the one question I had asked her last year, and now we see it in the film. As a woman leader, we see her, fighting through tears, through laughter, and she bonds with all kinds of people. She breaks into hostile terrain. She's gone to Somalia. She goes to meet Jerry Adams and all. So, Mary, I'd like to ask you, do you think male leaders can do this?
I do think that men can lead wonderfully. Think of Nelson Mandela. Think of Archbishop Tutu. Think of Kofi Annan. These elders, they became elders that I had the honor to be working with. Of course, but I think there is a difference. I think when women lead, action follows. This is what we say as a kind of cliche. But what we mean is it's very practical. It's problem solving. And it's very often listening more than maybe men often do. What I'm really saying is what we need in the world is what's called not just gender equality, but parity in leadership. Parity is 50%. And just think for a moment, if 50% of the countries in the world were led by women, wouldn't it be a better world? Wouldn't it be a safer world? Wouldn't it?
Yes.
And that's not at all anti-men. That's just saying the best is the balance, because we do come from different perspectives. And if you've got balanced cabinets, if you've got balanced parliaments, that reflects much better all the insights. And that's why we work so hard to promote women's leadership, because we see it as being a benefit. It's not anti-men at all. And even when I say, that climate change is a man-made problem that requires a feminist solution, I always explain man-made means all of us, human, and man includes women in that context, and feminist solution includes men. I mean, Obama, who gave me the great honor, described himself as a feminist. Trudeau.
You're married to one.
Sorry?
You're married to a feminist.
And I'm married to a feminist. Yeah, I mean, so the feminist way of leading is, very much drawn from the qualities of the women's leadership, the qualities of listening, being practical. Everybody should be heard, be included, and the decisions should be very participatory, and grounded in the reality of people's lives, etc. It's that kind of way of leading, and the more men who can lead with a sort of feminist perspective, maybe we'll find a better word, but at the moment that's the word we use. The better, I think.
Right, so since she mentioned Nick in a way, we don't know much about him except what we see in the film, and you have, and he's with you all the time. He says that too. Your parents were against the marriage. What role has he played? I mean, if you could describe, if you could narrate some instance where, you know, you were stuck somewhere and you found you were in a challenging situation and you looked up to Nick for a solution to, you know, move ahead. Could you tell us something about your relationship in that context?
Well, we've passed the 55 years married, so I think I got it right.
Wow.
And I don't think there's a moment when I haven't thought he's my rock, you know.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
But actually, it's mainly because he's so opposite to me. You know, he doesn't need to be engaged in the way I am. Mm-hmm. And he relaxes me. And we laugh a lot. He was a cartoonist when I married him. He's a lawyer, but he's more interested in architectural reform. He's very different. I think it's the very fact that he's so different. And then not only that, but he totally supports what I'm doing, even though it takes me away quite a lot, which he doesn't enjoy. As he mentioned, you know, Bride had a problem getting me to go on the film. You have no idea how difficult it was to get Nick to give that interview. You have no idea. The last thing he wants to do, even though he totally supported the film, supported everything, keep me out of it. But no, Bride said you must, you know. It's hard to explain, but we are so compatible because he generously, as a man, has never felt that. I mean, he joked about being 3 paces behind, but he's quite happy to be 3 paces behind. That's really
yeah,
what
we
I'm
could
saying.
see that.
And so supportive. Yeah.
Yes, that's great. I also would like you to tell us more about, you know, how the situation at the time when you were president and when you were with the elders and you were the commissioner of the human rights in the UN. How different is the situation today in the geopolitical situation? Is it any different? Have we moved forward? What is it, if you can, you know, tell us?
I think you kind of know the answer to that.
I would like to hear it from you.
I have to say, I do look back quite often now to the time when I was High Commissioner. It was a difficult job, but I had a lot of support. I had a lot of support from countries, I had a lot of support in different ways. We're in a very more difficult situation now. It's, you know, the fact that the President of the United States is undermining the rule of law, both internationally and within his own country. And that's very destabilizing, you know, for the whole world. And we have autocratic leaders, we have populist leaders, we also have, you know, leaders who are trying, despite that, to build coalitions. And I don't want to be too negative about what's happening at the global level, because if you take the climate issue, which we are very focused on, I was in Belém at the climate conference. I've been at most of the recent COPs. And in Belém, every country was there except the United States. Nobody followed the United States. Nobody followed President Trump. And, you know, during the last year, we got the High Seas Treaty agreed, and it's come into effect. And we got a treaty on pandemics. Not the greatest treaty, but a treaty. And what we have to do now going forward is deal with the reality that we need the countries that want solutions, that, you know, to move forward as much as possible. But it's more fractured, it's more difficult. And then we're on a 24-hour news. There's so much noise, so much social media. People don't know what to think anymore, almost. And then into that, there's an awful lot of lying and misrepresentation and deep fakes and all these things that are making people wonder, what do I trust? Which, to me, brings us back to where I learned so much from Ilaban, who was a great friend, Ilabat, founder of Seva. We first met when she came to Ireland in 1992 to a Women Leaders Conference. And then I made a state visit to India in 1995. ended up in this state and ended up with Seva. And then I, in fact, was the one who made sure that the elders included Ilaban, and she understood the community and the local as being the heart of how you move forward. And when you think about it, who do we trust? We trust the people we know. We trust the relationships we know. And I think we need to understand, and I'm going to give you, if you'll forgive me, a bit of human rights on this, because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights actually has a very good article about community, not a whole article, a sentence, which I'm going to tell you. For some reason, the human rights community that I'm very much part of, we neglected that part. We emphasized the individual. Individual human rights are very important. Rights of the child, women's rights, rights of LGBTI, all of these rights are really very important, but they're not the whole story. Article 29, the first sentence says, everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full expression of their personality is reached. So you have to know that you have duties to the community and you should do something about it, and then you yourself become your full personality. And we all know that. If you give to others, if you give to community, you feel better. You feel, I'm getting much more back than I'm giving. I often hear people say that. I'm getting so much more back when I work with others, when I engage. And this is going to be the most important truth going forward. The truth of community, the truth of safe spaces, the truth of trust in those you're working with, those you're seeking to collaborate with, partner with, and try to move forward. Sorry to give a long answer, but
that's all right.
You touched a human rights nerve.
And might I just add one brief thing to
please.
that? I think it is the loss of the feeling of community that also, of course, underscored by the loss of trust, the loss of truth, but the loss of feeling in community and not having a leader who believes in community and strengthening it is why we feel like we're moving backward on so many places and levels. And being in India, being here this week with Rima and the community of Sewa, you really understand again how profoundly different it makes in individual lives to feel a part of a community. And I just want to recognize that that work really begins with that trust in each other and the trust in a leader.
Okay. So since we are on community, you have interacted with Ilaben and you've been to Seva at least 3 times, I think.
Rima thinks 4 times. It's actually 5.
5, wow. So if you could tell us how different are the communities, women communities, since this is a women-led community, different from the other communities you have interacted with, say in Africa, or what is the difference you perceive, or is there any?
I haven't met another women's organization that has such a profound impact on each of the members. It changes their lives. If you meet the new member of Sewa, they keep saying, well, before I was on my own, maybe if I'm a waste picker, I was on the street, and dogs would probably, I'd no water, I'd no gloves. If you meet a construction worker, all of them have a pre-Sewa story. If you meet somebody who's been part of the Sewa, I'm a daughter of Sewa. I even heard one saying, I'm a granddaughter of Sewa. And it's because they are completely changed personally. They're enabled, they're empowered. Their voice matters. They know how to use their voice. It changes them. It changes them in the family. They become respected. They become, maybe the main earner sometimes, but certainly, a very productive part of the family in the full sense. And they know it has changed them. And now they have 3.8 million members. And they tell me that by the end of the year, it'll be just over 4 million. I don't know. But changing that number of lives of women means changing the family. Probably has an impact on the whole community of that family, because that's what women do. And think of the change for children, because there's so much childcare. We went to 2 places today, and in both of them, one was from migrant workers on the fringes of Ahmedabad. Possibly most of you have not been where we have been, where there's a building site with building materials on it and very makeshift tarpaulin for migrant workers. But in that, there was a cooling centre and children who couldn't go to school, and they did a wonderful little play for us. And it's so moving to see, in that kind of context, how you change people's lives. And it takes a lot of patience and a lot of listening. And I think that's why Sewa has been so successful. They've listened to what people, the women that they're trying to see if they can help in some way. They don't say, I've got a great idea for you. They say, what is it you feel you would like to change in your lives? What do you want? What's your priority?
Okay.
And this is so important.
Great. Thanks so much. I also got to know that you've come with your granddaughter, who is just 20. We would like to know, were you trying to, initiate her into a role like yours, or were you just trying, is this a familiarization with?
Well,
okay, she's here. Hi. Yes.
Is Amy here? Yes. Oh, yes, there you are. Good. Well, Nick and myself, we feel we've been very lucky to have had 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
Actually, I spent a lot of time with the 3 youngest, a boy of 11 and his 2 sisters, age 8 and 5, and it's the 5-year-old, Hazel. Ooh, she's a force of nature. She will either become, an autocratic leader who will do terrible damage, or she just might do some good. Amy is studying in her last year in the University College London, studying English literature.
Okay.
And I have great hopes for her, but they're not necessarily in the political area. I think she might become a writer, or she might become something. She might, something different.
Okay. So, how do you see young people? You have said in the film, in many places that, in Harvard, you saw the young people leading movements, and same in Ireland. What is your message to them, and how do you see them play an important role today?
Well, I've had the enormous gift, if you like, as an elder, of meeting a lot of incredible young people. We go out of our way to do the intergenerational discussions. When we go anywhere to a country, we have a meeting with young people. And then I have these climate activists. Some of them start at 13, 14, and they are extraordinary. Pat knows a lot of them as well. And I'm reminded over and over again of a great expression of Kofi Annan. He used to say, and I heard him even say it on our last mission together in Zimbabwe, you are never too young to lead, and you are never too old to learn. Isn't that a lovely expression?
Wow, yeah, that's wonderful. So what, maybe both of you could answer that. What do you think motivates the young? Because we are living in a very material, capitalist world where, we are also exposed to a lot of things around because of the internet. What is it that motivates them to do something to change the world? Where does that spark come from?
Well, in a very great way, what that motivates them is saving the planet that we all share and live on, because they've grown up in the middle of this nature and climate crisis, and they recognize that we're on the brink of having an uninhabitable world, and they're not having a future. So the young people that we're privileged to meet, and I have 14 of those grandchildren. Mary and I compete over the grandchildren.
Wow.
And every one of them, in almost every conversation, it's what are we doing to ensure that nature is restored, that we're protecting what we care about and love, and that we're making sure we have enough water and clean air and all the things necessary for life. So I find young people very motivated by the very real and frightening fact that it's now going to be on their shoulders to restore the many things that we as a generation have not taken such good care of. So purpose, if they have that, that's a
The
driving
sense of purpose.
purpose and focus.
And sorry, what was the second thing?
And I'm just saying that becomes a very driving
Okay.
passion, focus,
Focus.
and a commitment. So I'm very optimistic about the next generation. I think they feel the responsibility and are stepping up towards it.
Mary, sorry, you were saying something.
Yeah, I haven't much to add because I do very much agree with Pat. And I know Archbishop Tutu always said this. You know, young people give me hope, and he was wonderful with them. But I know it is a very confusing world for young people. There's so much noise. There's so much, constant. You can't get away from it. And if I have any advice for them, it's turn off your phones from time to time. Take time. Take time for relationships. Take time to think. Take time to almost have nothing to do, and then you'll find actually that you'll find yourself. You know, stop all this frenzy of what life is now hitting young people with in that sort of way. If I'm explaining it, it's just constant, and I think it is important to take time to be mindful and to mind yourself, mind your own mental health. One of the things that I found very notable in this visit to Sewa, more than the other visits, was the emphasis everywhere of the women on mental health. There needs to be emphasis on mental health. There's an awful lot of pressure, tension, and then people, if they're too much on the laptops and the mobile phones and the smartphones and things, if they're on them all day, it's not good for the brain. It's not good for
Too much distraction.
I think, but by and large, I agree with Pat. They are part of what really gives me hope, because we know so many young people, and they're all over the world. I mean, in different parts of the world. It is very, and including in China. You know, young people in China that I know that are determined to change the world. I meet so many young people here in India. I mean, you know, it's all over the world. We met them in Brazil. Wonderful. And they also have more respect for indigenous wisdom, which is great. Yeah.
And they have respect for their elders from time to time. But I think that's another one of the reasons that the film is resonating so, is that young people are looking for leaders that they can admire, that they can trust, that they can believe, and that they want to follow. And there is a scarcity of those kinds of leaders in the world today. So seeing a film about someone who represents what they believe leadership should be, I think is one of the reasons that the film is resonating with all ages. And that was
So yeah,
the
that was
reason we
going to
made
be
it.
my next question. In fact, there's probably no formula with which leaders are made, but we've seen movements create leaders, crises create leaders, elections create leaders. What, according to you, is the best way a leader can rise, resonate, and lead?
I think that's a hard question to answer because there are so many contexts.
Correct.
Yeah. But I think what is important for a leader is to, yes, to have a vision, but not to have a vision of what I will do going alone. It's a question of leading by enabling people to see that we can together change the circumstances, change the future, and that we can move forward. There's an African saying, I think, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
Right.
And I think Sewa is a perfect example of that, of going together and doing it in the collective way. So that kind of way of leading, I admire very, very much. I think another aspect of leadership is to build trust, and very often trust is when a leader takes a hard decision that's hard for them, and then, you know, people say, well, at least he did this or she did that. You know, that was hard for her or him, and I think that's important. You know, we have too many populist leaders now who want to just say the popular thing, even if it's not the right decision for now. And we see a lot of that in climate, short-term decisions that aren't actually making a difference.
I'd also like to ask you, when did you first, we had a leader, Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. When did you first hear about him? Because I know that you went to his ashram in 95? You went in 95?
95,
yes.
Yeah. No, it was, I had read about Gandhi when I was young, and I was very inspired by him.
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many things that, you know, he was a lawyer. He did.
Yes.
he was in South Africa as a lawyer. He had problems, and he came back to his own country. And I really felt very engaged in reading about him at the age of 15, 16, that sort of age.
Okay.
And then when I found I was coming on this state visit to India, and that the government of India very kindly was providing a big airplane so I could go to quite a bit of this huge country. Mm-hmm. And we did go around, and the last place where we ended up was here in Ahmedabad. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, and this is my personal thing, I remember it so well, mm-hmm. I had a kind of mother's guilt, because the 2nd of October was my daughter's birthday, Amy's mother.
Oh.
My daughter's birthday, and I was miles away, and I was kind of, ooh, and I didn't realize it was also Gandhi's birthday.
Wow.
So on that day, I was supposed to go to the ashram privately for a private visit and then go to Seva. Mm-hmm. But it didn't work out like that. I was told, or my officials who were with me learned that there would be quite a big crowd at the ashram to pay tribute before they all went to work. So early in the morning, they would be there. And so we were told, please change your program and go first to Seva. Mm-hmm. So we did. And we not only went to Seva, but we had to stay longer than we might have otherwise done, which was very good and very fascinating. But it meant that my husband and myself were sitting on the ground when my chief of protocol came and told me that now we can go. And my legs had gone, they were numb. And Ila Bat and I, we shared this joke for years that I was bad, my husband was worse. We had to, how do we get out of here? And then but even more so, when I got to the ashram, they said, hurry, your audience is waiting. And I said, what? I was there, and I went, and there were about, I was in India, so the crowd was not an Irish crowd. There must have been at least 1,000 students, young, the age when I had learned about Gandhi. Mm-hmm. And I looked around, and I thought, well, all I can do is tell how Gandhi had influenced me. Mm-hmm. I can't even remember whether I was translated at the time or what happened. I mean, it's just a thing. But I know that an Irish journalist who was following me said, President, that was one of your better speeches.
Oh, wow. That's great. Thank you so much. I think we'll now open the floor for some questions. Few questions we can take. Yes.
Myself, Chifa. I'm from Military Communication. My question is to Her Highness.
Ma'am, there are 193 UN member states, but as of now, only 28 states, women are as head of states or head of government. Why? What's the reason behind this? We are still living in gender-biased world or political barrier or what? A second is, even in the third decade of 21st century, a girl needs to change her last name after getting married. Why not a male? What's the reason behind this? In your case, from Bouquet to Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, and lovely questions from a young man. I think it is not good for the world that we don't have even the beginnings of real balance in leadership between women and men, for the reasons that I gave, that if there is that balance, it's much better. But the reasons are, I think, that the system is still very male-dominated. there's a great deal of misogyny. I know from all of my women friends who are involved in politics, they are all suffering much more than their male counterparts from horrible social media, truly horrible. It really focuses, and I do know, I think Jacinda Ardern, who was a good woman Prime Minister of New Zealand, has made it pretty clear that it was the misogyny on social media that caused her to feel she just couldn't continue. It was just so, she's a young child, it was doing her head in. She was finding it very difficult. I didn't quite follow your second question, so I might pass that one to Pat. Did you follow it?
Well, I think it was about the fact that we are still living in a gender unbalanced world. In fact, there really isn't a country in the world that has true gender equality. Iceland may come close, but to your question about leadership, Mary makes a very important point in that we have at other times, as you said, had many more women in key leadership positions like presidents of countries. And I think that has declined because women are being terrorized out of politics. In the United States, some 37 women members of our national government have had attacks of one sort or the other. Not just social media attacks, but real attacks. So there has been a violent drive to keep women out of political leadership. So we were making a lot of progress for a while. When we got to that 28 countries, that was getting closer. And then during COVID, we saw how successful the countries were that were being led by women because of some of the reasons that Mary mentioned, just simply a different approach to problem solving, not always better, but different, offering new ideas. Now we seem to have gone backward, and a lot of that has to do with the misogyny and with some really outdated views of who and what is best for a leader. But I feel like that pendulum will swing again. We've seen it in climate, if I just might mention there. Women are disproportionately negatively impacted by climate. More women die and children die because of the catastrophes, weather catastrophes. They're just on the front line. But the reverse of that is that 85% of the people leading climate organizations and innovative solutions on the front lines are also women. So there we're seeing why it makes a difference to have a different perspective, not better, but different when it comes to problem solving. And we have a lot of problems in the world today, so it'd be greater to see, it would be safer, I think, if we had both men and women leading in those rooms where decisions are made.
Great. Okay, just one last question.
First of all, welcome back to the land of Gujarat, Madam President and every delegates. Ma'am, first of all, I'm very proud that the land of Gujarat itself is a... Sure. So in short, I'll just say that Gujarat itself is a classic example of the climate justice since the medieval ages. So my question follows that I've recently been following your work on the project Dandelion. So my question is that recently in the polarized geopolitical stage, that how can we convince the global leaders that the human rights, it's not just about the climate justice, it's not just about the environmental issue, rather it's an important factor of the human rights. So how can we convince the global leaders that the step can be taken forward at a very fast pace or very quickly? That's it.
I think it's important to see that basically climate justice is about having a people-centered approach to the climate and nature shocks that we were talking about. A people-centered approach, exactly what SAY was doing, with its Clearer Skies policy, and we're aligned very much to that with Project Dandelion. We're working very closely together because we're so aligned. But that means you have to be talking about human rights. You've got to be talking about gender equality. You've got to be talking about the disproportionate impact on women and girls. You've got to be talking about the impact of poverty. And I learned from Ilaben, and I don't think in the West countries, if I can call it that, the more developed industrialized countries, that we recognize, as she said so firmly, that poverty is a form of violence. Remember her saying that many times.
She said that.
And I don't think we see it that way, but it is. And when you listen to the lives of people in poverty, made worse by the climate and nature crisis, and we know that the emissions are caused mainly by the countries that industrialized and now by the large emerging economies like India, but also China, Russia, etc. And it's the big corporations and big emitters that are causing the problem. But the problem is affecting the poorest. So climate justice starts with understanding the layers of injustice. And if I may, I'll just briefly say, you probably will think of more layers, but the ones I'm familiar with are, and I learned this when I was working after my time as High Commissioner, I worked in African countries on economic and social rights to health and food and water and education. And this was in 2003, 2004, 2005. I hadn't been focused on climate in my work as a High Commissioner. It was so much work to do that I didn't make the connection. But I absolutely made it when women would say to me, "Is God punishing us? What is happening? This is outside our experience." And this was a time when in my own country, Ireland, or Europe, or the United States, people were not aware. But it was hitting the poorest countries, poorest communities, small island states, and indigenous peoples much earlier and much more severely. And then the second, and it's related, of course, is the gender inequality, the gender injustice of climate. I think we saw that in all our discussions with SEWA, women disproportionately affected, children disproportionately affected. And the third one is the intergenerational injustice, that young people know that we need to move faster to have a secure world, and they're not at the table, and the leaders at the table aren't doing what they should be doing. So it's very frustrating. I mean, we find, some climate activists almost get burned out. They're trying so hard, and they just can't get their voices heard. The fourth injustice is one that I think is more relevant now than it's ever been, but it's a kind of development injustice. Industrialized countries like my country, Ireland, and Europe and the United States, we built our economies on fossil fuel. So our responsibility is to wean ourselves off more rapidly, take our responsibility and phase out much more rapidly. Both emerging economies and poorer countries, I'm thinking particularly in Africa, are finding oil and gas. And we're saying, oh, no, you can't now because we've used up the budget. They get very angry sometimes with this conversation, but actually, if they do use up all that they have, they will be the first to suffer, and they will suffer worst. That's the continuing injustice. And then the last injustice, of course, is to nature, what we're doing. And what I love about the way that SEWA is approaching the climate and nature is how much they are greening. You see it in the streets. The chalet, is that what it's called? The narrow streets. They have greened 10 of them that we were looking at. They're using cooling. They're using paint that doesn't reflects the light, so that it doesn't warm artificially. They're using skylights. There's so much sense of tree planting. All the organic solutions that are, it's just amazing. And we want to, sort of take all this wisdom and spread it a bit.
So, thank you. Here we have a leader who actually gave up a position to become a bigger leader, as Ambassador said. Outside of titles, positions, she has emerged as a much bigger leader, and she's traveling all around the world, learning and, giving solutions and so on. Thank you. It was a delight talking to both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, on behalf of the Ahmedabad Management Association, it's my absolute honor and privilege to present a felicitation and propose the vote of thanks for this truly, truly inspiring evening. In fact, there are two words. I'm spellbound, Mrs. Mary, after watching the documentary, was mesmerizing and inspiring. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are deeply honored by the presence of Mrs. Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland, and would take this moment to felicitate her in recognition of her exemplary leadership and her lifelong commitment to human rights, equality, climate justice, which continue to inspire the global dialogue and the actions. May I invite Mohal Sarabhai to please come on the stage along with all executive committee members. Please join me in felicitating. In fact, I want Reema Ben to be also present on the stage, please. And the granddaughter, please. Can we have you? We would like to felicitate His Excellency Mr. Kevin Kelly, Ambassador of Ireland, and we want to express our sincere appreciation for his presence. Can we have you, sir, on the stage?
Thank you so much.
We are truly pleased to felicitate Mr. Patrick Duffy, Consul General of Ireland in Mumbai, and thank him for his valuable presence. We extend our appreciation and felicitation the esteemed panelist, Ms. Pat Michel. Can we have you on the stage? A beautiful documentary that will inspire millions of young minds. We'd like to felicitate and thank our moderator, Ms. Leena Misra, our own Leena Misra, senior journalist, for guiding the panel and posing wonderful questions, getting answers from the heart. So the felicitation has been done along with the Matani Pachedi, that is geographical indication of Ahmedabad. The artisan made the frame and then the stalls, which are geographical indication registered, and that is how we promote the artisan's work right at the platform of AMA. We acknowledge with gratitude the support and collaboration of Embassy of Ireland, Seva team, especially Rima Ben, a very silent mover, whose partnership made this meaningful program possible. We also thank the members, the guests, all the participants for their presence, which added immense value for this conversation on the leadership and global voice. With this, I conclude the formal proceedings and invite all of you to join for the dinner this evening. Thank you.